What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Matthew of Blood Red Roses. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. It's so awesome to have you here. First thing is always first. This new album, Fall to the Hate, is absolutely kick ass. Excellent work. Were you going into this with a different creative mind frame than what we were hearing from the Days of Ashes of Your Enemy? Or was this maybe, are you kind of like approaching this from sort of like a similar form of creative madness?
Me as a drummer, yes, it was sort of me coming up with drum parts that were sort of ingrained in me from what I did in Ashes. My lead guitar player, lead singer, he comes in with hits. He's so different the way he writes songs. Like he'll come in with a riff, and I'll be like, "Damn, that's heavy. So let's take it in this direction." And then my bass player is straightforward, just pounds, and my other lead guitar player who does all the solos are they're not straightforward solos. They're just eclectic to me. So the music is basically what comes out from Peter, and then we try and arrange it, and my drum style sort of guides the song where I think it should go. And then Peter will play his parts, and it'll be like, I think we want to do this. So for me, yes, it's coming from the past.
Mhm.
I'm always trying to change, but it's ingrained in me on how I like to play.
Of course.
So it's sort of that's where it comes from.
Well, a lot of people, and I've had this discussion with every drummer recently, but like a lot of people say that just because drums don't have melody behind it, it's not a very emotional instrument, which I think is total bullshit. So please prove that theory wrong.
It's totally bullshit. I mean, not to sound wimpy, but there was one song that off the previous record called Fallen, and my lead man Peter wrote it because there was some family issues dealing with depression and all that, and suicidal, and it just nailed me in the chest. So because I understand it completely, so I'm coming from someone who has an anxiety disorder, believe that one, some depression and all that. So when I was writing the drum part, it was very emotional. Like at one point, you could see when I play it live, if I'm in that headspace, you could see my face getting welled up because the words and how much energy and heart goes into it is I'm all heart. If I come up with a drum part to Peter's song and I don't feel my chest and my heart in it, then I don't want to play it. So I got to come up with something else.
Of course.
It's all about emotion. If you're playing with no emotion, something's wrong.
Definitely. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as playing with emotion in a way, like, or playing without emotion. I think in the end, like, there's emotion. Even if somebody really is up there acting like they don't give a fuck, there's definitely emotion in it channeled some way or another.
Absolutely. It's drum playing is sort of my way of getting it out, because I'm always told you're so flatline, like nothing phases you. And maybe so, but when I get behind the set, everything comes out. Everything that happened for the day, for the week, the month, it all comes out. And in a way that's helpful. It's therapeutic.
Yeah. Does each piece of drum hardware almost express a different emotion? Does your bass drum have a different a form of expression than your snare, or your crash cymbal different than ride, etc.?
Absolutely. I bass drum to me, man, I like to just pound that shit. I pound it because it's coming from the leg and from all the emotion coming down. And also the snare. It's you're pounding something, and instead of punching a wall or doing whatever, you're beating up something that is musical and can take it and give something back where you could be like, oh, that was cool. I got to do that again. And I'm sure it's the same way with guitars and everything. You got to play with heart. And that's sort of where we come from, or at least that's where I come from. But I know the others, you can see it in their faces that there's emotion in there. It comes out in practice too. You could tell who had a bad day.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then that's
Absolutely.
that, and that's when he's and that's when you guys help him load out his gear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or
Drummer always has the most stuff.
yeah. Oh my God. I remember, I forgot, I read somewhere like in the Hard Times article, like good, like a person, like singer gets Nobel Peace Prize for actually helping load in the gear or something like that.
It's true, man. It's true. It's it's better.
Yeah.
But certain, you're in certain bands and they're like their microphone. But this one I'm grateful because if I'm out of breath or I injured something or whatever, they're right there. And it's so funny because a lot of the venues you play nowadays, they have a backline. So using my own gear, short of cymbal stand, cymbal snare, the main drum part you can't use. You have to use theirs. So you're constantly changing. So 3 weeks ago, we were playing in Delaware, and it was like the first show, and I would say 2 years where I had to bring all my gear. I was like, yes, it's like I finally get to play because it's comfy. I can play on anything. You give me one snare, one tom, I'll play.
Yeah.
But
But
it's always nice.
I mean, I'm not a drummer, so I could just be talking shit. But like, I would be so relieved if a vet and you had a back line, knowing that I didn't have to bring all my shit with me. You know?
Certain places like Manhattan and New York, I'm fine with it because moving all that gear, you have no place to park. I'm cool with it. And we play Dingbats a lot in North Jersey. They have a back line. I'm fine with it as long as the weather's nice. I set up outside. I'm smoking butts. I'm enjoying. When it's raining, but you do what you got to do.
Of course. Moving on to the album too, "Fall to the Hate." Was there sort of like a preconceived vision of what you wanted this album to sound like, or was this sort of like a very improvisational and sort of like experimental songwriting process?
For Peter, he would bring these songs in, and I remember I would joke with him. I'm like, heavier. We need to get heavier, 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 heavier. And our style before that was very much rockish, and there were heavy parts. But when he would bring these new riffs in, he'd be like, "Matt, wait do you hear this? Wait do you hear this?" So he was actually the motivation. That he was just like, "I want to be heavier," and I was like, "I'm down. I'm down." And he would bring in these riffs, and I'd be like, "Damn, that's heavier." So it would change our mindset, my guitar player, my bass player, and we'd have to think through what can we do to make it heavier. He's got the riff. Now let's put the drum parts to it and get things beefed up. And it would sort of just come. There's always songs that are a little bit more tedious to write and to work with, and then there are ones that are magical and they just kind of come together. And Ashes had that on several hit songs where it was like, oh, took 3 minutes to write. We're good. And this was sort of the same way. There were a couple that even extended my playing where I was like, I don't think I can do that. That's not my style. But it's great because it pushes you. And I like being pushed. I like to be able to do things and sometimes thinking too much. Like I'm not a Chris Adler drummer, even though I'd love to be. But I sort of grew up in the 80s and the 90s of the style. So, yeah, it was sort of let's try this and see where it goes. And we were all on the same page. We want to go heavier. And that's where Fall to the Hate came from. Just the song title is pretty much what they're all about. They're very angry. Everything's very fueled with aggression. And that's kind of what I like,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, I thought with "Ashes of Your Enemy," and I mean it as a compliment too, but like "Ashes of Your Enemy" to me was very straightforward in a way where like it was, brutal death metal. I thought of it as, like Obituary, some Carcass, some Immolation in there, and whatnot. But like, with "Fall to the Hate" and with the work of Blood Red Roses, I feel like there's some parts that have more groove in it. There's some parts that have more atmosphere, and is it fair to say that maybe that this was a little bit more of an experimental songwriting process? There was more like kind of like I don't like using this term because it sounds kind of derogatory, but it was like throwing shit at the wall, seeing what stuck.
yeah, it really was because, like I said, we all come from different styles, and that kind of makes it different. Like I said, I'm heavy. I'm not. I'm not a light drummer, but Peter, the main guitar player, songwriter thing, he comes from a world where he had solo stuff that was so mellow and easy and about love and life, and then all of a sudden he comes in and he's a different person now. Like he got that all out of his system years ago, and now balls to the wall. And that's where it sort of was throw this out there and let's see what comes for it. And even older songs we're still thinking about reformatting and redoing to be more the style we are now.
Yeah.
which is heavier.
You're talking about
And
stuff off of Tempest Descends and stuff, redoing
yeah,
that. I mean, I thought it
yeah,
was still pretty good. I think that's like a sort of like a nice sort of introduction to what you got.
yeah. It was sort of let's see what we got here as a band. Let's see what we do. Originally we were a three-piece, and that was good enough. And we all wanted to keep it. All right, we're good friends. Let's keep it the three of us because there's no problems that can arise or egos or clashes. So we wanted to be a three-piece. And what stuck with me was when we first started, Don Jameson came up to us and was like, for a three-piece, you're hard, man. You guys hit it. It doesn't sound like a three-piece. And I'm like, perfect. We're doing the right thing. And as time went on, Peter's ideas, and he's got a lot of them, were like, I think we need another guitar player. And I'm like, to do ambient stuff, to do weird, like noise stuff, creepy, eerie stuff that you want to do on that. I'm like, all right, that sounds like a good deal. I went and my old college buddy, who's a great guitar player, I was like, you're still around. You want to play? And I honestly didn't think he'd say yes because he's, family, good job. Why would he want to do this? He joined up, and he's probably the most talented in the band. Guitar wise, he's ridiculous. And you take four guys who listen to, like Peter's a U2 fan. Dave listens to everything. Dave, the lead guitar player, listens to everything from classical jazz to Megadeth. Me, I'm kind of influenced by metal.
Yeah, I could
You know,
tell. I could tell. I mean, like, because when I first saw Ashes of Your Enemy, when I saw you guys play at Lucky 13 back in the day, I mean, I was blown away by the original stuff you were playing. But when I saw you guys play Roots, Bloody Roots, now I saw before you guys, I saw bands cover that, and after you guys, I saw bands cover that. I don't think you're gonna get. I really thought that you hit that just as accurately as Igor Cavalera did. Like I thought that was the closest reminiscent to Igor in a way. So
I
like,
appreciate it.
I could
That's
tell that you hit fucking hard, man.
he's one of my faves, and that song, like we weren't anti-cover. We're not doing covers, and then all of a sudden that just came to rehearsal. I'm like, that's us. And we wanted to play one of the last shows Ashes did was at the Starland opening for Prong, Sepultura, and Testament. And I was like, guys, let's do Roots. And one of the gentlemen there was like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, oh, come on. We could play it just as good. And that's what Blood's trying to do right now. We're trying to figure out, because around here, it's like cover band central. In order to make money, in order to get it, I mean, cover bands, cover bands, cover bands. We're not a cover band. Don't want to be a cover band. But there is one or two songs, and we're working on a couple that I'm like, those would actually fit us perfectly. And could, maybe if someone's walking out of the venue because they're just done, you play that one cover that will make them turn around and go, oh, it's sad, but it's true. That unfortunately nowadays you need that in some places.
Yeah. Well,
So
I don't I never understood why people frown upon people doing covers. Like I get it, there is something, there it's very impressive that people could write a song that, it just didn't exist and you bring it into the world, and I totally get that. But what's wrong with just bringing new life to a classic song too? Granted, I've always don't think it's good to rely on nostalgia, but like a good song is a good song, and I think a cover song is really a good way to sort of reel people in and sort of demonstrate talent, show a cool taste. And I always love it whether a band covers something that's more similar in their style or just covers something completely out of left field. I thought you could have easily done a death metal version of a Celine Dion song.
you absolutely. We're talking about a Billy Joel song because we
Just saw
could
it a couple
turn,
days ago.
Hot Big Shot or whatever is the name of it. I want to turn that into a metal song. In a lot of ways, though, we're so wrapped up in writing, continually writing. Like, keep writing, keep moving forward. We just finished this CD. Let's write for the next one. And Lord knows what'll come out of it. That's sort of the exciting part is what is Peter going to bring in next? And, oh, Jesus, what is Peter going to bring in next that we can work on? Like I said, he brings in stuff that are off time that I'm like, I work off this time. Why are you doing this to me? But it's a challenge. So it's fun. It's fun. Like you can't lose sight that this is fun, and because it's easy to get wrapped up in the business part of it and be like, screw this, I don't want it. But we're of age and we've been through enough. We're like, this is fun. Let's get creative.
Uh,
So as a group, that's sort of what happens.
do you find it easier to come up with parts though when you are in the company of your other bandmates, or
Mhm.
isolation being such a great fuel for creativity, you kind of come up with ideas better when you're more alone?
For me, I'm better when I'm alone. I believe it or not, I do a lot of it when I'm lying in bed. I'll be like, okay, I got the song in my head. Now, if I do this there, I can do that. And then I try and put it to what I think. But rehearsing is a good time to weed out the cracks. Like, oh, I didn't know you were playing that. Because let's face it, I'm not in $1 million studio. I've got a studio in my basement. So sometimes you can't actually hear a lot of what's going. So then you slow it down, you talk about it, and you hear exactly so you can sort of work it together that way. So for me, I like jamming out on my own and then bringing it. In the other bands I was in, a lot of times it was the guitar player had everything set, everything was done. Play this, add your style to it, but this is the way it is. This, it was a little bit different. It was different for me because I was sort of used to having a formula, and that's the way it is. This, Peter comes in with a riff or a complete song and goes, have at it. And he's completely open. There's no negativity. There's no my way or the highway, nothing. And it's always like, yeah, cool, cool. All right, after rehearsal, I'll work on that. It's just very easy,
Do you
which is weird.
Well, do you come up with? Has there ever been a time where you had like a whole drum pattern written and the band would write over that, or do you prefer to have music already present before you know what to contribute?
I would prefer, like, I want to learn how to play guitar so I could so I could play the ideas I have because I have tons of like patterns and guitar riffs up here, but I don't know how to get it across to them. So I'm like, you know what? I got to learn guitar. I got to do this. So technically, I'll turn those guitar ideas in my head into a drum part and then see if that fits with what's going on or how I can move it around. I am constantly like what was recorded drum wise, I'll stick with the basics, but if time goes on and I can come up with something that's even more aggressive, like more catchy, or maybe out of my realm, then I'll put it in. And that's why for me, it's always like, oh man, we've been playing it only for a year. We have to record it now. For me, it's like, play that song for 3 years and then we can record it. But doesn't, not sensical, but that's sort of where my head's at.
Yeah. We're not gonna
But
talk. We're not gonna talk shit. I mentioned this with Dirk from Megadeth before, but like, do you? If somebody presents you the song, there's no drums on it. You could be honest. How off time is it sometimes? I've noticed that some guitar players and vocalists don't exactly, have the best sense of rhythm at times. At times, before I open up a can of worms with that statement.
um, I play to a click and everything, so I try and keep things in time. But that happens. It happens where it'll be like, that's a little weird. I don't. What am I supposed to do with that? And like, I'm the aggressive one in the band, the angry one, as I'm told. So I
Couldn't have fooled
unfortunately
me.
have this. I I am the aggressive one, and unfortunately, I can be not abusive, but if Peter plays something, I'll be like, that sucks, and I'm like, oh, that was mean. But if I don't get it, and there were songs on this new record where up until like 2 weeks ago, I was like, still not feeling it, still not the best work, still not my best work, and recently I was really, really just going through the songs in my head, and I'm like, oh, I guess that wasn't that bad. Like I'm always trying to improve and it can always be better. There's no ego here. There's no ego in the band. So yes, they can come in, he can come in and it's a little off time. Time signature's weird. Mantra on the CD, it's off. The time signature is off. And for me, it was hard because I'm not a drummer like Mike Portnoy or someone that can play. Those drummers blow my mind. I'm sitting there like, huh? So I try and mathematically calculate what they're doing, and I'm like, no, can't do it. I'm just not that style.
Okay, but
So
you being the angry one in the band, I find that very hard to believe. I think Bob Marley was more angry in his interviews than you are. So
people say, even in my job,
maybe
I work on an ambulance. I'm an EMT. I see death and gore every day, and They're like, you're either ice cold or you're just steady.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I think I'm a little ice cold because you get desensitized after 12, 13 years of dealing with death. But at the same time, I try and be steady. I'm not, this positive. I'm just sort of okay, and then when the drumming comes, then it's time to kill.
I don't want to get you fired by asking this, but like, has hearing the heart rater in the machine, has that been almost kind of like a convenient click track to sometimes?
Sometimes doing compressions on a chest, you're like, it's yeah, the beat is there.
You gotta
Everything I do,
resuscitate someone blast beat style.
look, you got to slow down. You got to slow down. I'm like, no, I got this. I got this.
Yeah.
Everything I do, I walk, talk. I've got something going on in the brain.
You and Josh Silver from Typo Negative should maybe the two metalheads who work in EMT. So
Oh, is he an EMT paramedic or something?
paramedic, and also like I think in like he a paramedic in like East New York too, which is like the worst neighborhood in Brooklyn. So
Oh yeah,
like
it's I was an EMT for a long time in Trenton,
oh, it
um,
gets bad there.
parts of Hamilton, New Brunswick. The things I just it's awful.
What about
It's just
Camden?
awful. I have never ever will I work in Camden. I have coworkers that have. I've got coworkers that work in Irvington, which is 4 square blocks of hell. But I will not go to Camden. I draw my line.
Hey
I have
man,
seen way too much.
the inspiration. The inspiration. In case you have an artist block, just call up and be like, "Hey, you need somebody to work in Camden for an hour."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And then, honestly, I made a joke about this, but when bands, and I'm not putting, drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, but when you got a metal band that's addicted, and later on it comes out they were drunk or they were drugged out, some of the best music comes from artists that are angry.
yeah, of
You know
course.
what I mean? Like they're either totally distraught or getting divorced or whatever. When they sober up, it's like they lost the anger.
Yeah. Well,
It's an outlet.
it's an unfortunate duality that when we are at our worst, art tends to be at its best. That's just one of the cruelest. It's like it's one of those many cruel jokes in life, but you got to make the most of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's an outlet, man. I don't know there have been times where I'm like, I should just stop. Like I'm beaten, I'm booking gigs and it's just not. And then other days I'm like, but wait, this is an outlet for you. You don't have this. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm like, good point.
Yeah. I mean, not to quote, not probably the best quote, and I never thought I'd be quoting him in my interview journey, but Dr. Phil brought up a good point saying, like, not everybody has to, be fucking savant at something, but like, if you're just waking up, going to work, coming home from work, going back to bed, you need to go back to the drawing board. Like, it's important to, like, have sort of like a passion or a hobby or just something that, takes you out of the loop. So and look, I when I first saw Ashes of Your Enemy, I saw you behind that kit, and I was like, this guy has the passion. So I'm was
I
very
appreciate that because I did. Yeah,
yeah,
I really,
yeah.
I got it. I got the fire. It's just a matter of getting to the right people.
It's always burning
So,
since the world's been turning. I just saw Billy Joel, so I
yeah.
had to add that pun
We
there. So
didn't build the fire.
yep. Oh man, and that song gave me a psychological complex when I had a teacher give us a homework assignment where he had to define every historical term that was mentioned in that song, no less than 30 words for each of them. So that
No
was
way.
that was an
That's
absolute hell.
killer.
Yeah, that was my 14-year-old self. I had a vendetta against Billy Joel for like 10 years after that. So
PTSD, my man.
yep, of course. So before we
PTSD.
go, I want to thank you so much for your time and great to talk with you and catch up. Is there just anything else with Blood Red Roses you'd like to promote with the release of this great new album in terms of gigs we could be expecting, or what else we could be expecting in the near future?
Well, we're doing OTEP in a few weeks at Dingbats. Then we're going to be in Newark, New Jersey for Ironbound Fest, which we've never done before. And then we're going to be in Staten Island in July. So I'm working, ugh, sorry. It's not a pager, believe it or not. Um, right now I try and do one big show a month, two, my work schedule and all that, but is social media, man. I just want people to go and listen to the tunes. That's all I ask. Like putting it on my Facebook page and all my friends, that's fine. I want new people.
Yeah.
So that's what playing shows are for. I'm trying to get, and I'm not the greatest social media people. I'm getting ready to hire a bunch of people. Just do it for me because I don't know. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, of course.
And being older, social media, I have never been on Twitch. The hell is Twitch?
I have no
Or
idea. I have no idea. I
I
just
don't have a clue.
fi-
So yeah, that's just social media, social media, social media. The days of, you probably remember, hanging flyers on cars.
I'm 20. I'm gonna be 30 this year, dude. So, I remember I remember back in the day, buying stuff on iTunes, and back if you wanted the whole album, you had to buy the whole. If you wanted the bonus tracks, you had to buy the whole album.
By the whole,
Yeah, like I'm not familiar with these things CDs that you people will tell me about, but
yeah, I got a whole stack of them. Like, what the hell do I do with them? Posters.
but
So that's cool. Alex, man, it's been great. I hope to see you soon.
hope to see you soon, brother. Thank you so much, everybody.
Plan
We
on
are
getting
we are here with Blood Red Roses, Fall to the Hate. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.